You will experience many things throughout your life, but nothing, and I mean nothing, will come close to the first time when you learn about dinosaurs when you're a kid. Whether it's TV shows or books, just imagining these huge creatures that used to roam the earth before us was breathtaking and it was magical. Growing up though, and turning to an adult, you lose a lot of the magic. Like all of a sudden, instead of which dinosaur is the coolest looking, it became which food should I buy to save the most money. All of a sudden, instead of who will win in a fight between a T-Rex and a Spino, it became why are you in my house? Who are you? This is trespassing! You've already read the title, you already know what I'm going to do. But more importantly, I want to recapture the magic and the childlike wonder that we all had when we first read a dinosaur book for the first time. Today in this video, I vow to I'm ranking all the dinosaurs on one condition and one condition only, and it's exactly how Trivial Me would have done it. I'm ranking the dinosaurs on how cool and interesting they come across. Obviously, that's very subjective, so if you do disagree with me, then get lost. Kindly comment down on a list in the comment section below. And without further ado, let's begin. Acrocanthosaurus was one of the dinosaurs I really wanted to see on the big screen. It's criminal they never showcased him. Everybody loves his distant relative the T-Rex, but Acrocanthosaurus ruled for tens of millions of years before the T-Rex. It's called a high-spine lizard, and you will never ever guess why. The one thing that makes him stand out was the row of tall neural spines along his neck, back and hips. His lower spines had attachments for powerful muscles like a bison probably, forming like a ridge down his back. Similarly to my dad's whereabouts, the function of his spine is unknown. However, it may have been used for communication, the storing of fats, or temperature control. He was one of the largest theropods in his ecosystem, and likely an apex predator that preyed on everything else. In 2022, there was a severe drought in Texas which revealed many things under the water, one of which were Acrocanthosaurus footprints, which were really close by to sauropod tracks. It's really rare for theropods to hunt in a pack, but this was exactly what those Acrocanthosaurus footprints were suggesting, which would make them even more impressive as a predator. All this aside though, let's not act like when we were kids we wouldn't draw dinosaurs with spikes on top of them. I know I did, only to find out later that they're actually a real thing. So guess what, Timmy from kindergarten class? No, I wasn't drawing a made up dinosaur, it's called an Acrocanthosaurus. Dip. That's what I should have said. I said Timmy the dummy. I had to stop kindergartens because the bullying got so bad. Everybody knows the T-Rex was a king, but he didn't make his crown, he got it from the Acrocanthosaurus. Cool, spiky, and mad underrated. I'm putting Acro in the A tier. Hopefully the next time I see him, it'll be on the big screen. Alamosaurus, for my money's worth, was the fiercest animal that the T-Rex could prey on. We are talking about 100 feet long, possibly 70 tons, 8 times the weight of an average T-Rex. The Alamosaurus holds the record for being the biggest animal in North America. This guy was an absolute unit. Dinosaurs were just different, man. Some of them had built-in armor, the Alamosaurus being one of them. They had these bony armor plates on their back, some fossils even showing they used to be more spiky and rounded. A solid piece of defense, but not his best one. The Alamosaurus had a really robust body. Pause. His neck and chest were hella sturdy, which made sure his most vulnerable organs were never in any danger. The size, the spikes, and now this, he was basically untouchable for any predator that tried to test him, including Rexy. My most favorite thing about the Alamosaurus wasn't the fact that he was a tank, and it wasn't his robust body, it was the story of how he came to be. There is this common myth, and this can be found in a lot of children's books as well, that the sauropods died out after the Jurassic period, and that none of them came over the Cretaceous period. There is some truth to that. It is called the sauropod hiatus, where during the Cretaceous period, all sauropods mysteriously vanish. Did they die out? Did they gain sentience and time travel to save themselves from the asteroid? Who knows? But after 30 million years, as mysteriously as they vanished, the Alamosaurus mysteriously appeared. They were the last giants, the last sauropods during the Cretaceous period, and they were there when the asteroid hit. Insanely cool lore and insanely cool dinosaur. I gotta give him an A. The first ever Tyrannosaur fossil that was discovered belonged to an Albertosaurus. They were basically smaller but faster rexes. In fact, it may have been the fastest predator of its size in the whole world. I like him because it really shows how dangerous and insane things were back then. If you go on the internet, you're either gonna find mentally stable people or people who believe they can outrun a rex. Maybe, just maybe, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, you can outrun a rex, but even in your dreams, you aren't outrunning an Albertosaurus. Scientists even discovered a bone bit of 26 Albertosaurus in one spot, so this could be a rare instance of a theropod hunting in packs again. They had a fast growth rate, meaning even teenage Albertosaurus were deadly. If you're anything like me, then the first thing you noticed about this dinosaur wasn't about how it looked, it was his name. Why, in God's green name, was this badass killer of a dinosaur named Albert? This guy's a theropod? His real name's Albert! Long story short, it was because he was found in Alberta, Canada. But still though, being named Albert, I have to bring it up a few tiers solely because of that. If you ever meet one in public and you're afraid he's going to eat you, just remember, his real name's Albert. I'm putting Albert in the C tier. Bro, I'm telling you, Allosaurus really was about the life. He did not fear anybody. This guy legit wanted all the smoke. It didn't matter if you're a herbivore, carnivore, sauropod, or cockroach, you were catching these claws. Hell, it didn't even matter if you're an Allosaurus yourself. Discoveries showed that they were bite marks on its own kind, heavily implying that they were cannibals, and further proving how much of a menace this guy was. The Allosaurus were smart, they were fast, and they were really aggressive. I don't even need to Google it, I already know how this guy evolved throughout the years. Unlike the T-Rex though, they had these long arms which they can use to grab onto their prey. It was quite possibly the most successful predatory theropod of all time. It dominated its entire ecosystem for tens of millions of years, outnumbering its competing species, and it outlived every single one of them as well. Although, being super aggressive and reckless does come at a cost though, and for one Allosaurus, it was his manhood. Arguably, the most brutal death during the Jurassic period, and Allosaurus was hit by a Tagomyza in his balls while he was fighting a Stego. There was an Allosaurus fossil which had a circular hole in its pelvis, and for a long time, we didn't know what it was, until researchers found out that the only thing that can cause something like that to happen was the tail spike of a Stegosaurus. I don't know what's worse, being hit in the balls, or years later being displayed in a museum because you got hit in the balls. Either way, a huge theropod who fights anything that comes across is so cool to me, man. And also, that poor Allosaurus whose genitals are being put on display for everybody to see, I might have to add some pity points for that. Allosaurus is going to A tier. Amargasaurus was a big animal but a small sauropod. It's pretty unique because there is only one known skeleton in the entire world, but it was enough to make Amargasaurus one of the best known sauropods. Its most notable feature are the two parallel rows of tall spines that were on its neck and back. These spines were taller than any other sauropod, and most likely served as a defensive measure against predators. Was it? You see, recent discoveries showed that it most likely didn't have spines protruding on its back, but they formed a makeshift skin sail of sorts. It was already in other dinosaurs, and it most likely was used to control body temperature. This big fin on his back gave it a really unique look that no other sauropod had. Don't you dare discourage him, he was trying something new, alright? He was trying to stay ahead of the fashion curve maybe, I don't know. Unfortunately, he would go extinct thinking his trend didn't catch on. He didn't live long enough to see the fruits of his labour. Cool looking dinosaur, but I think there are way cooler dinosaurs out there. I'm putting him in the C tier. Albertosaurus, unlike many other sauropods, had a shorter, stonkier neck. It had a heavy whip-like tail, capable of cracking over 300 miles per hour, possibly the fastest tail whip in dinosaur history. His name Albertosaurus means deceptive lizard, because there is nothing sneaky about a dinosaur that's over 20 meters long. He was always overshadowed by his other sauropods though, and in fact, throughout the years, people and scientists alike often confuse him with Brontosaurus. A pretty forgettable dinosaur if you ask me, and you know what? Bronto over here, he's going to C tier. The T-Rex was the most dominant apex predator of the late Cretaceous period. Every single dinosaur had bite marks on it. Every single dinosaur, except one. Ankylosaurus is a fan favorite dinosaur, and for good reason at that. When he was first discovered, paleontologists were so amazed about how different he was from the rest of the dinosaurs that they decided to make a new group for it, called Ankylosaurii. Dinosaurs who had small and large bony shields fused to the back of their skin. The actual definition of build different. These bony plates are called osteoderms, and remember that, because the Ankylosaurus wasn't the only one who had it. But their osteoderms was so strong that it was even able to withstand light gunfire, so if any dinosaurs back then tried shooting it with a gun, it wouldn't work. His armor on his back was badass, but that wasn't his only form of defense. While most dinosaurs had a regular tail, like a weirdo, the Ankylosaurus had a sledgehammer, and when he swung the weapon, it swung, and it was able to damage cars, and it was strong enough to break bones. Arguably, his best form of offense. But was it ever used for any of that? You see, there's been no found fossils indicating that a theropod or a predator was ever damaged by a club strike. In fact, the only known dinosaur which showed any form of damage from club strikes were other Ankylosaurus. This implies that their tails were primarily used for fights with itself, like for mating or territory. It reminds me a lot of rams and how they use their horns primarily for mating related combat, but if push comes to shove, you best believe they are using the horn to fight back. Likewise, an Ankylosaurus tail was probably used for mating rituals, but if anything tried to test it back then, it would have smacked it and reminded it of its place. With the T-Rex being so dominant, it's very impressive to see a dinosaur that's actually able to stand his ground with it and go head to head. I'm putting Ankylosaurus in the S tier. In my previous video, I talked about a man named Charles Darwin who founded the theory of evolution. Many people back then, including scientists, strongly disagree with this concept, saying it wasn't possible for animals to evolve over time. That was until they discovered the Archaeopteryx fossil. The Archaeopteryx fossil was the most important fossil that us humans ever discovered, as it changed our views and how we saw dinosaurs. For a long time, people thought that birds and dinosaurs were two different things, but the truth is, all birds are dinosaurs, but not all dinosaurs were birds. It had feathers like a bird, but he had sharp teeth and clawed fingers on his wings, making it look like a tiny raptor that could fly. Fly, not glide. This dinosaur just feels like the gift that keeps on giving, because for a long time, we were confused on how this thing was able to fly, but its other dinosaur counterparts can't. As recent as 2025, a study was conducted on Archaeopteryx fossil, and it showed that they had territory feathers which are essential for flight. Now how well could the Archaeopteryx fly? That's still up for debate. Was he able to fly like any other bird, graciously, or did he fly like my drunk uncle who mistook a window for a door? Who knows? One thing's for sure, Archaeopteryx changed the landscape and how we saw dinosaurs in general, and for that, we have to give it its flowers. Also, I know you'll probably kill me, but I really want one as a pet. B tier. Argentinosaurus is considered to be one of the largest animals who have ever walked this earth, only losing out to your lovely mother. While many sauropods are long, this guy was estimated to grow up to 100 feet, which is the size of a 10-story building. He had really big bones. One vertebrae alone was over a meter tall. Here's what it would have looked like compared to a human. The wild part is, paleontologists only found a few bones of the Argentinosaurus, but it is still enough to crown it the biggest thing that's ever walked the earth. I always wondered how a creature of this magnitude would eat. Like, how much would he need to eat to satisfy his hunger? Studies suggested that he needed to eat huge quantities of plants daily, probably stripping entire forests just to stay full. It ate up to 850 kg food per day, and that's just one Argentinosaurus. At the end of the day though, we only have few bones of this magnificent creature, so a lot of what we think is just estimated guesses. For all we know, he could have just been like a really big foot, and the rest of his body is like miniature size. Who knows? I hope we find a full specimen one day, but until that day comes, C tier. Astrodon was a sauropod who has super rare and unique star-shaped teeth. That is so cool and interesting. Astrodon is going to the bottom D tier. The Atrociraptor was a small but ferocious predator from the late Cretaceous period. He was about 2 meters long, the same size as a large dog. And I'll say it one more time for the people at the back, the same size as a large dog. They actually live around the same time as Velociraptors. The Atrociraptors though were from Alberta and they had a deeper box-shaped skull and thicker teeth, meaning they more likely went for bigger prey. In contrast to the Velociraptors, who were from Mongolia with a longer skull and thinner teeth, meaning they more likely went for smaller prey. The Atrociraptor's teeth were serrated and blade-like, just made for tearing flesh apart, and if he didn't bite you, he would have probably slashed you with his curved claws on each of his foot. An underrated dinosaur, usually overshadowed by his cousin the Velociraptors, and when he does show up on the big screen, he isn't done justice. I'm gonna put Atrociraptors in the B tier. The Baryonyx is so cool. So cool. He's related to my favorite dinosaur of all time, but we'll talk about him later. He looks like a prehistoric hybrid between a raptor and a crocodile. He grew up to 10 meters and walked on 2 legs, but what really stood out? The massive claw. Baryonyx was discovered with preserved stomach contents. A few years back, right, scientists found fish scales in his stomach, making it one of the first dinosaurs confirmed to eat fish. Its long snout and backward curving teeth resemble those of modern crocs, so it could have hunted similarly by snapping at fishes in rivers and swamps. Before Baryonyx, most people assumed that all theropods were land-based meat hunters only. The Baryonyx discovery in 1983 changed all of this, showing that some big predators evolved to hunt in water as well. It wasn't just about lurking in rivers though. The Baryonyx had really powerful legs, strong enough to chase you down on land. There has been many iterations of how the Baryonyx looked like throughout the years, but I gotta give a special shout out to Baryonyx. That, to me, looks the most coolest and most menacing. But it wasn't the best. Rudy from Ice Age, if you know you know, is arguably one of the best on-screen dinosaurs we've ever seen. Was he the most accurate Baryonyx? No. But I speak for everybody where I say he was one of the reasons why me and so many others became so fascinated with prehistoric animals. A crocodile that can chase you down on 2 legs. Name a more deeply yearned fantasy. Baryonyx goes into A tier. Rudy goes into S. Without a shadow of a doubt, the Brachiosaurus is the most popular sauropod of all time. For many people, this was the first dinosaur we ever saw in our lives as we watched Jurassic Park for the first time. Brachy has something that most sauropods don't. He had longer front legs compared to back legs. This design was very rare for sauropods and it gave him an elevated posture like a giraffe. Brachy carried his neck upwards, contrary to other sauropods who held their necks more horizontally. Fun fact, he had nostrils placed up high on his head, on top of his skull. For a time, a lot of people thought that this meant he could breathe underwater like a snorkel, but the entire theory is outdated. It just had weirdly placed nose holes for some reason. Argentinosaurus was the biggest overall, but when it comes to height, few could go inch for inch with the Brachiosaurus. I'm putting Brachy in the B tier, for Brachy. Camarasaurus was a sauropod who lived around 150 million years ago, and was up to 15 to 20 meters long. What made him stand out from his sauropod brothers was his bite force. While other sauropods had peg-like teeth, the Camarasaurus had spoon-shaped teeth, and would have probably been able to bite meat chunks off of any predator that tried to mess with it. Camarasaurus is alright. I'm putting him in C tier, for C tier. Carcharodontosaurus was one of the largest theropod dinosaurs. His name meant shark-toothed lizard, and it was because he had, wait for it, shark-like teeth. His teeth wasn't as strong as Rex's, and he had less biting power, but they were serrated, similar to a great white, made for slicing huge chunks of flesh. I wasn't kidding when I said he was big. This is how his skull looked next to a Rex's. He could reach up to 40 meters, and was estimated to rival or even exceed the size of a T-Rex. It lived in North America, roaming the same prehistoric dead zone as the Spinosaurus and many other apex predators. Although the Spino and Carcha both fill different niches, if they ever confronted one another, there is no doubt in my mind that Carcha will come on top. Spinos aren't built for confrontations with larger dinosaurs, Carcha is. We used to think back in the day that Spinos were the main competitors for the Carcha, since there wasn't much that could stand with it. But with recent studies, we found out that Carcha was definitely the top apex predator of the time. It was king. I love the fact that he couldn't break bones with his chomp, but instead he used his teeth to tear flesh up. Carcha is going to the top of B tier. Carnotaurus looked like a devil and was one of the fastest largest theropods ever. It had a much weaker bite force compared to a Rex, but Carno was able to run twice as fast. Carno had a massive cordiofemoralis muscle, which is why he was able to run at breakneck speeds. This is the muscle that, when contracted, it will pull the leg backwards, making it run with powerful strides. He was a real speed demon, but the most evil thing about him was the person that gave him these tiny ass arms. If you ever feel useless in life, just remember that at least you want the arms of a Carno. I mean damn, everybody clowns the T-Rex for having small arms, but at least you could actually grab stuff with it. The Carnotaurus didn't have the luxury. I don't know who decided to give him these chicken wings of an arms, but you really screwed him over, man. Look at what you got him doing. That's f***ed up. When I first saw him, right, I thought his horns functioned as rhinos, so he would charge at his prey and impale it. But turns out, his skull was too delicate for the kind of behavior, and there is no evidence of Carnosaurus ramming to their prey. My guess is that he used it for interspecies combat like a deer. Also, if you ever watched Disney's dinosaur movie growing up, first of all, you have amazing taste. Second of all, the Carnosaurus wasn't that big in real life. They were originally going to use the T-Rex, that's why it was way bigger than it seems, but they changed it last minute since Jurassic Park already came out and they didn't want to use the same villain twice. I've always loved how the Carnotaurus looked, and it wasn't because of his horns. A tier. This poor dinosaur. I don't think I've ever seen a Ceratosaurus adaptation where he isn't getting beaten up wrong. I think the only adaptation where he isn't in a situation where he's being humiliated is in Jurassic Park 3, and in that one, he had 2 seconds of screen time, and it was him smelling shit and running away. Ceratosaurus is a dinosaur used to make other dinosaurs feel powerful. His sole purpose is to be cannon fodder and get beaten up. He was a mid-sized theropod with a horn sticking out in the middle of his snout, but I guess this wasn't enough to make him a threatening foe. They even got lions jumping this guy's ass. Lions didn't even exist back then. How is this even possible? This is how it feels like to be a Ceratosaurus fan. If you're watching this video, I beg one of you, make it your life's mission to become an animator and make a Ceratosaurus film where he actually kills something. Please! I don't care what it is at this point. He could kill a fly in the movie and it'll be the biggest thing that Ceratosaurus has ever done in his entire life. Whoever he is, he's crying tears of joy right now. This is the biggest accomplishment of his career. The punching bag dinosaur, Ceratosaurus. He's going to S tier. Sometimes, good things come in small packages. The Dilophosaurus was really small compared to his other theropod counterparts, but that doesn't mean it wasn't successful. It was one of the most earliest successful dinosaurs of all time. The Dilophosaurus was up to 3 meters long. They had thin hollow bones like birds. This means that whatever they lacked in size, they made up for in speed. It was also heavily implied that from many fossils they found that they were pack hunters, although they would only ever go for prey which is smaller than them, like fish and insects. For a while, people thought that they ate their young as well, that they were cannibals. And this was because the Dilophosaurus adult fossils had their own babies in his stomach cavities, but later studies showed that it just made it some random bones mixed after his death. I was not really a big fan of them, but after researching and learning more about them, I'm still not a big fan. C tier. If you ever seen Jurassic Park, you know what a compy is. Like the Dilophosaurus, it also had hollow bones like a bird. Compies were one of the dinosaurs that helped bridge the gap between birds and non-avian dinosaurs. When it was first discovered in the 1800s, right, it was one of the smallest known dinosaurs, and for decades it held the title, until we discovered the Microraptor. It's heavily suggested that they also hunted in packs and went after small creatures, lizards, insects, carrions, baby dinosaurs, and even small mammals. They were quick, opportunistic meat eaters, not apex predators. The Jurassic books though took this idea to a whole different level. They had a venom which could paralyze people, which they used on a man to eat him alive. But this wasn't the worst thing, and if you read the books, you already know what I'm going to talk about. It's very graphic, so I'm not going to say it, but I am going to heavily imply that the baby was eaten by compies. I like compies more than Coelophysis solely because of how metal they were in the books. Compy is going to B tier. Corythosaurus was called the helmet lizard, and it was a dinosaur with a unique crest on its head, which resembled an ancient Greek helmet. The crest wasn't just a show, it had hollow chambers connected to its nose, which scientists think it could make deep resonating calls to communicate with the herd. Its fossils even show that it was both active during the day and night, so it was able to adapt with different activity patterns and coexist with other herbivores. He's alright, but I just like other dinosaurs more. C tier. Crylophosaurus was the first ever dinosaur discovered in Antarctica, showing us that dinosaurs were really all over the world. It was a large, well-built theropod. In fact, it was the largest theropod discovered in Antarctica. Its most iconic feature is the bizarre sideways crest on its head. It wasn't like any other crest, it went straight back, and this one served sideways across its skull. After many deep extensive studies, paleontologists found out that the crest was not used for combat, and that the Crylophosaurus was just a really big fan of Elvis Presley. It lived during the early Jurassic, around 190 million years ago, making it one of the oldest and largest theropods that we know of, reaching up to 7 meters in length. I like its hairdo. I'm putting Crylo at the top of C tier. Concavenator comes from the Carcharodontosaurus family, a group of large theropods where it definitely felt like it was an outlier. He was way smaller compared to them, but more importantly, he looked unique. The first thing that stands out is his elongated vertebrae in front of his hips, forming a hump or sail of sorts. Another feature that made him stand out were the krill knobs he had on his arms, similar to modern birds. There is heavy debate if they had krill knobs or muscle attachment points, but the truth is, we do not know a lot of why the Concavenator was the Concavenator. Why did he have those humps? Was it krill knobs or muscle attachments? Is he even real? Am I even real? Concavenator is going to C tier for giving me an identity crisis. I hope we can learn more about him one day. It would be hella funny if there was like zero reason why he was the way he was. Daspletosaurus is the beta version of the T-Rex, the prototype. It lived about 10 years earlier and gave us many clues to how the T-Rex actually evolved throughout the years. Many people claim that he's a direct ancestor of the T-Rex, but it's way more complicated than that, trust me. Some paleontologists believe that certain species of Daspletosaurus gradually evolved into Tyrannosaurus through anagenesis. This is the process of a species that slowly changes into another without branching. Without actual genetic DNA though, this is very hard to prove. So the bottom line is that both Daspletosaurus and the T-Rex are really close relatives, but whether one evolved to another, it's a big debate. This is the most interesting thing to me about the Daspletosaurus. C tier. Deinonychus has been one of the most wackiest looking dinosaurs ever. For decades, we only had his massive arms which were over 8 feet long, and we had no idea how he looked like, which was kind of funny thinking back to when people assumed that this had to be one hell of a predator. Turns out, Deinonychus was just this huge duck-billed dinosaur. It had the longest arms of any dinosaur which walked on 2 feet. It was assumed that they would use its claws to dig up plants in riverbeds. They weren't solely plant eaters though. Their pelican-like beak suggests that they were omnivores that would eat fish from time to time. I just love how goofy he looks. I don't know how dinosaurs sound like, but my headcanon is that he quacked like a duck. My uncle was a huge fan of dinosaurs in the 90s, and he used to tell me that being a kid in the 90s, seeing his hands and nothing else was scary. He had such a mysterious appeal to it, seeing those huge claws but nothing else, only to discover that it was nothing, absolutely nothing of what people expected. Dino was my uncle's favorite dinosaur when he was younger. I'm putting Dinocheirus in the A tier. And this is out of my own will. I love Dino, and it's not because my uncle is behind the camera with a Glock 45 pointing it directly to my chest. Dinocheirus is going to A tier. The name Dreadnoughts come from old British battleships, meaning it fears nothing. If I was that size, I don't think I would have feared anything either. Dreadnoughts were one of the heaviest dinosaurs ever, coming in at an estimated 65 tons, which is the weight of 12 elephants. Like Argentinosaurus, Dreadnoughts were also a member of the Titanosaur family, the largest land animals ever. There has only ever been 2 Dreadnought specimens found. 70% of its skeleton were found, but its bones were showing signs that it hadn't finished growing, meaning it could have gotten even bigger than it absurdly was. You ever wonder how these massive sauropods slept? Guess what? I also don't really know, but my guess is that it either slept standing up like how some elephants did, or it found something to lie or sleep on. You would think it would sleep like how giraffes sleep, right? Like they would curl their necks back as they sat, but sauropods didn't have the ability to do that, Dreadnoughts included. I'm putting Dreadnoughts in the C tier. I like his name and what it stands for, but other than that, The Deinonychus took the place of the Velociraptors in the Jurassic Park books, but he didn't come to the big screen. What could have been? He was part of the raptor family, and he was also one of the most important dinosaurs ever discovered. Back in the early 90s, people thought dinosaurs were sluggish reptiles, as evident from all the movies back then. Deinonychus helped revolutionize dinosaur science by inspiring the idea that dinosaurs were warm-blooded and active. It had hollow bones like birds, 3-fingered hands, all characteristics that reignited the dinosaur breed theory, which is now a widely accepted idea. The Deinonychus had their famous sickle-shaped claw on each of their foot, used for slashing their prey. Although, recent studies have showed that maybe it wasn't used for slashing, maybe his claws were used for pinning his prey. Also, I had no idea this even existed until I started researching about it, but in 2015, right, after analyzing some young dino specimens and their shoulder joints, they concluded the young dino might have been capable of some sort of flight, but as he grew older, he lost that ability. B tier. Dilophosaurus is one of my personal favorite dinosaurs of all time, for all the wrong reasons. You see, for many years, I loved how he spit venom and opened up his flaps when attacking people, only to realize that the actual real-life Dilo does none of these things. He wasn't as small as the movies portrayed him out to be also. He was 6 to 7 meters and weighed around 500 kg, much bigger than the dog-sized version in the Jurassic films. The one thing the movies got right was the 2 fancy crests on his head. It was likely used to attract mates or intimidate rivals. Back in the days when I used to play Ark with my friends, the first ever dinosaur I tamed was a Dilophosaurus named Genji. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, but I would be lying if I told you he wasn't loyal. Every single time we were in danger, it didn't matter who he was, if it was Carno, if it was a T-Rex, it didn't matter who he was, he would have our backs. One day, all of us decided to move home to a different part of the map. We made sure we bought every single thing, but we forgot one of the most important things. We forgot Genji. I went back and searched the area for hours, but he wasn't there. I searched and searched and searched, you gotta believe me, I did search, but he was not there. And that was the end of it. I built a tombstone, we held a funeral, and that was the end of it. A few days passed, and we went to raid one of the caves in Ark, and it was a really harsh raid. We lost many dinosaurs and even more friends. I was the only one who made it out alive, but as I did, and I thought it was all over, an Alpha Rex jumped my mother freaking ass. I had all the materials, but it would all be for nothing. This is how I go out? After every single thing we did, I survived all that just to die outside. And as I gave up hope and accepted my fate, out of freaking nowhere, Genji came. He spit venom at the T-Rex. He went in, he scrapped, and he gave me enough time for me to run away safely. He fought his best, but at the end of the day, he was just a Dilo. And this time I knew he was dead, because I saw it with my own eyes. Now, would a real life Dilo do that? Or would he join the Rex to chase me down and kill me? It doesn't matter. Genji was a real one. I'm putting Dilo in the S tier. Rest easy, Genji. I would say Diplodocus was the most famous sauropod, only behind the Brachiosaurus. It wasn't the heaviest, but it was one of the longest land animals ever, measuring up to 27 meters. One thing that stands out about him is his tail. He had an insanely long flexible tail that he used like a whip, possibly cracking at sonic speeds. No other sauropod had one quite like it. Unlike the other sauropods as well, Diplo only had teeth at the front of his mouth, so he functioned as a leaf rake, stripping leaves off branches. And lastly, Diplo has something that many dinosaurs do not. He has a very fun name to say. Diplodocus. 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 C tier. Diplodocus. Edmontosaurus wasn't the flashiest dinosaur out there, but he made up for it in survival skills. He didn't have no claws, he didn't have no horns, but he was a 12-meter long herbivore. Some people forget how big these duck-billed plant-eating dinosaurs can grow up to be sometimes. It was able to run super fast at around 28 miles per hour. It used its herd for safety and just was able to defend itself perfectly. If you wanted to take it down, you had to work for it. There's even a famous fossil with heel bite wounds from a T-Rex. This is one of the only pieces of evidence showing that a dinosaur can survive a Rex. That is hardcore. I'm putting him in the B tier. Eoraptor is one of the oldest dinosaurs known, which lived around 230 million years ago. It was only about 1 meter, but it had teeth for both meat and plant eating, making it one of the earliest omnivores that we know of. It had a slender bill and long legs, suggesting that it was fast and nimble. For something so small, it's really shocking, and I mean really shocking, and I mean really shocking, that it was one of the earliest basal sauropodomorphs ever discovered, meaning it was an early relative near the base group of sauropods that later evolved into what we know them as. That's absolutely crazy. I'm putting him in the C tier. Gallimimus was a giant feathered ostrich on steroids. It clocked up speeds to 37 miles per hour, faster than most modern cars in city traffic. Paleontologists are still theorizing if there was a dinosaur that handed out speed tickets, but if there was, the Gallimimus would have gotten most of it. It was an omnivore using speed and sharp senses to stay ahead of predators. C tier. Gastonia was an Ankylosaurus covered in long sharp spikes, especially on its shoulders and sides. This made it a real pain in the ass for any predator that tried to test it back then. I assume trying to eat him would be exactly like how those interesting people in 2012 felt where they did those swallowing cactus challenges. Everything is cooler with spikes, but I just like the Ankylosaurus more because he had a hammer for his tail and Gastonia doesn't. B tier. In Jurassic World Dominion, the Giga was said to be the biggest carnivore the world has ever seen. He wasn't, but he was one of the largest theropods ever, estimating to be even bigger than a T-Rex, coming in at 47 feet, where Rex were coming at 42. Giga wasn't just about the size. The T-Rex was known for his biting power, being able to almost one-shot anything his way. The Giga had sharp blade-like teeth, absolutely perfect for slicing and dicing meat. It probably focused more on slashing rather than crushing. It was longer than the T-Rex and had a longer skull, giving it more reach in combat. Gigas was so mental that he possibly went around hunting the biggest dinosaur ever, Argentinosaurus. A fossil site in Patagonia discovered multiple Gigas fossils near Argentinosaurus remains. Some bone damage on the Argentinosaurus fossils appears consistent with theropod attacks, so this might mean that they went around hunting in packs, which would make them unstoppable. Although, this is a theory which is still heavily debated. Giga is part of the big three in pop culture when it comes to apex predators. I'm putting Giga in the A tier. There is just something about a giant dino which feels unstoppable that scratches that part of my brain which I love. When you hear the word raptor, you think of something small, something fast, something deadly. The Gigantoraptor was none of these things. It was the size of a T-Rex, towering over most raptors, being at 26 feet. It was first discovered in Mongolia, and people were so confused why a raptor was so massive. Unlike most predators, he had a toothless beak like a bird, suggesting that he might be omnivorous, eating plants and small animals alike. Even though he was big, I still prefer the other raptors compared to the Gigantoraptor. I'm putting him in the C tier. Gorgosaurus was a theropod that lived during the late Cretaceous period. It belonged to the same family as the T-Rex. It was slightly smaller, but still was a formidable predator with sharp and serrated teeth. He had a strong sense of smell and vision, better than most other theropods. He was an early Tyrannosaurid that paved the way and helped us better understand how Tyrannosaurus really grew. I like other theropods better though. I'm putting him in the C tier. At first glance, I remember thinking Guanlong was a cool addition to the raptor family, only to later realize that he wasn't part of that. He was part of the Tyrannosaur family. In fact, Guanlong is the earliest ancestor of the Tyrannosaur family tree that we know of. His name literally means crowned dragon. It was given the name because of the huge paper-thin crest on his nose and head. Guanlong was only about 3 meters long, a featherweight compared to his bulky descendants, but he had a slender body and long legs, so he was really fast and agile. You wanna know something really sad? 2 Guanlong fossils were found stacked on top of each other in China, likely buried by a mudslide. My headcanon is that they were loved ones, and as soon as they saw the mudslide coming, they did exactly what those toys in Toy Story 3 did, when they were gonna die. A tragic love story, I think. B tier. Hadrosaurus was a duck-billed herbivore. It was one of the first dinosaurs discovered that gave scientists a clear idea of what dinosaurs actually looked like. I grew up seeing him everywhere, but nowadays it feels like nobody mentions him. Truth is because of how he looks. If you are doing dinosaurs in media, you want the most flashiest, you want the most marketable, you want the dinosaurs that stands out. Hadrosaurus unfortunately has none of these, and I'm tired of it. It's time we do Hadrosaurus some justice. He's going to the bottom of C tier. Herrerasaurus was an OG dinosaur. He was around during the late Triassic, where most dinosaurs were still figuring out how to dinosaur. I wanted to talk about him because of how unique he actually is. You see, Herrerasaurus is super primitive, and has traits that look more like early reptiles compared to other classic dinosaurs. Some scientists think they are part of a group called the Dinosaurians, close cousins of the dinosaurs, but not an official dinosaur. Its hip structure and skull features don't fit perfectly with the 2 main dinosaur groups as well. But today, most paleontologists classify it as a very early basal dinosaur, an underrated dinosaur, and I just feel like I said dinosaur way too many times, but we have to show more Triassic dinosaurs some love. I feel like many of them go under the radar, putting Herrerasaur in the B tier. Iguanodon was a dino superstar, being among the first ever dinosaurs ever discovered back in the 1800s. It was a hefty dino, standing roughly around 10 meters. If you ever see one of his early models of how paleontologists thought it looked like, there was a weirdest horn in his nose, making him look like a unicorn. That horn was on his body, but it wasn't on his nose, it was on his thumbs. My favourite part of the Iguanodon was their famous pointy thumb spike, which worked like a weapon jabbing predators. Is there anything more gangster than that? Like giving 2 thumbs up before stabbing somebody with death with it. Its beak was perfect for cropping vegetation, and he had rows of grinding teeth to munch on tough leaves. I love the fact that he just shanks people with thumbs. And get this, his fossils were found in England, which is southern Britain. The jokes just write themselves. I'm putting Iguanodon in A tier. You know, I'm starting to see a pattern. I either really love goofy dinosaurs, or dinosaurs which are badass unstoppable killing machines. There is no in between. Yup, his name was Irritator. I know some people might look at me differently for adding my sister to the list, but I guarantee you, there will be no bias as I judge. Apparently his name was Irritator because the scientists got so irritated from fixing his broken skull fossil that he got from poachers. He's part of the Spinosaurid family, and he was an actual legit predator from the early Cretaceous period. He had a long narrow skull with conical teeth, perfect for snagging fishes from any rivers and lakes. Irritator might have also had a model sail on his back, around 6 to 7 meters long, not as big as the Spinosaurus one. It's really funny to me how he will forever be remembered as Irritator, just because his skull, which he couldn't control by the way, was hard to put together. To the next generation of beings who will come after humans go extinct, if you ever find my remains, please have mercy. I can't control how hard my remains are to piece back together. I swear to God, if you name me something like Infuriator or Ankylosaurus, B tier. This is one of the most horniest dinosaurs of all time. It had 15 horns on his head. I know beauty is in the eye of the beholder and everything, but I think we can all unanimously agree that Compsognathus is one of the best looking dinosaurs we've ever seen. Even his fossil is pretty. Instead of simple spikes, Compsognathus has horns that curve forward and sideways, giving it a really dramatic look. Unlike its more famous cousins, the Triceratops, Compsognathus had a really small nose horn, which made his skull look more ornamental. It isn't crazy to say that this is one of the top 3 looking dinosaurs of all time. I can stare at this guy all day, man. I'm putting Cosmoceratops in the A tier. Somebody gotta put him in the front cover of Vogue. That's where we're gonna put him at. Lambeosaurus was a duck-billed dinosaur part of the Hadrosaur family. They were plant-eating machines, but what made Lambeosaurus stand out from the rest was a giant hollow crest on his head. It looked like he swallowed a saxophone but it got stuck on his head halfway through. You know, a lot of movies tend to villainify dinosaurs, trying to make it seem like they were the devils and that they only put on this earth to cause mayhem. But this was never the case. At the end of the day, they were just animals trying to survive like any other. The only evil thing during the prehistoric era was the fact that nobody told a Lambeosaurus that it wasn't okay to go out in public looking like that. Lambeosaurus is going to C tier. Deinonychus was a tiny theropod with even tinier fingers. Perhaps we were too harsh on the Carno. When I first saw the Deinonychus, I thought he had really sharp nipples. You can tell why my childhood dream of being a paleontologist never worked out. The Deinonychus is the only known avian dinosaur with just one functional finger on each hand. It's been theorized that it uses it for digging termite, mounds, or insect nests like an anteater. They were all about speed and bug hunting, but with those tiny fingers, I really don't know how it's used for like hunting bugs. I can't think of any other animal with the same ratio as this dinosaur. But hey, if it works, it works. I'm not an expert at evolution, but I know it's not about looking cool. Everything has a purpose. The Deinonychus didn't need multiple fingers, it only needed one. I just find it hard to believe that it was used for digging bugs. So if you have an answer, please leave it in the comment section below. But until then, C tier. Maiasaura was called the good mother lizard because instead of laying eggs and living to get milk like most other dinosaurs did, she actually raised them. Wow. Maiasaura was a hadrosaur that lived in now what's Montana. It lived around 76 million years ago, where it would move around like in packs. The wild part is, fossils were found in nests with hatchlings that had clearly stuck around after hatching. Why? Because their legs weren't fully developed, so Mama Maiasaura had to bring the food to them. Even more evidence that dinosaurs were birds, not just in bones, but behavior as well. We love a hardworking single mother. Shout out to all the single mothers out there, man. B tier. Amargasaurus was the king of Madagascar, long before King Julian took his reign. This is one of the dinosaurs where you have concrete evidence that he was a cannibal. I mean, he was caught in 4K, you know what I'm saying? It was probably in the same vein as the Komodo dragon and how they would kill and fight each other over a large corpse. It had a short and deep skull and looked like someone squished a T-Rex with a hydraulic press. Some paleontologists even believe that he may have used his head like a club, delivering bone-cracking blows. He's cool and all, don't get me wrong, but choosing only to rule when King Julian wasn't around, I just don't think I can respect that kind of behavior. I have to put him in C tier. Mamenchisaurus holds a record for the longest neck of any dinosaur ever. Its neck made up over half of its entire body length, being 15 meters. For comparison, that's longer than a London double-decker bus. Someone should make like a Dino Team water park. The Mamenchisaurus neck would be like an amazing water slide, right? C tier. Megalosaurus is kinda plain compared to other theropods. He didn't have any crest, he didn't have a horn, he didn't have like a strong jaw. He was just a theropod. To the layman who only cared about dinosaurs on the surface level. Because you see, if you're a big fan of dinosaurs, you will know that Megalosaurus is very special because the Megalosaurus was the first ever dinosaur to be discovered. Back then people thought that it was this massive quadruple lizard. They were very wrong, but hey, baby steps. It didn't have anything that made it stand out, but it helped spark the entire field of paleontology. Everybody isn't special, but it can be. B tier. Megaraptor wasn't an average raptor. Unlike classic raptors, Megaraptors had these big powerful arms with two large sickle-shaped claws. It was robust and well built, which was unusual for large theropods. Paleontologists aren't really sure where they fit into the dinosaur family tree though. The two most famous theories was that they were Tyrannosaurids that evolved into some Allosaurus features, or they were Allosaurids that evolved into some Tyrannosaurus features. Too many saurids if you ask me. They're large, fast, and basically every single thing a company is looking for to sell a marketable dinosaur. He's definitely going to become way popular as the years goes by. A tier. Meilong is China's sleeping dragon. It's a big deal in the world of paleontology because it was one of the first dinosaurs found preserved in a sleeping position. Just like modern birds, he had his head tucked underneath his arm and legs folded in. Another solid piece of evidence linking dinosaurs to birds, not just in anatomy, but behavior as well. I ain't gonna lie, his fossil looks so adorable. He went for a short sleep, not knowing it was going to be a really long one. I mean like damn, is anybody gonna wake him up or something? No, like guys, actually, is anybody gonna wake him up? B tier. Microraptor had not one, not two, not five, but 4 wings. It had 2 wings on its arms and 2 more on its legs. Scientists believe that its wings wasn't used for actual flying, rather it would glide from tree to tree like a squirrel. He was about the size of a crow, a tiny little guy. Fun fact, the Microraptor fossils were so well preserved that it was possible to discover the colour of his feathers. They were black, but when light hit it, they would change to a bluish-greenish colour. I want one as a pet. B tier. Nasutoceratops had a big nose, the type that would make a Minecraft villager jealous. It was 15 feet long, weighing over 15 tons. Most ceratops had upward curving elegant horns. Not Nasuto. His horns curved forward, like he was constantly ready to headbutt anything that tried it. I still prefer some of the other ceratopians over it though. C tier. It's pronounced Nigersaurus. Say it with me now, it's pronounced Nigersaurus. It looks like a miniature-sized version of a sauropod. Its skull was lightweight and some parts of it were translucent, so if you held it up to the sun you could probably see some light passing through. The Nigersaurus was most famously known for having around 500 teeth. It was replaceable, so like a conveyor belt, if one teeth wore out, another one would just pop out to replace it. Nigersaurus was the only known dinosaur to have teeth lined up side to side across the front jaw. Also, just look at his face, man. He's just happy to be here. I'm putting him in the A tier. Ouranosaurus was a duck-billed herbivore with a giant sail on its back. He was way bigger than what people actually thought he was. C tier. You remember when Elden first came out and everybody kept calling Moog a pedophile for what he did to Michaela? For years, people made fun of him for this, only for the DLC to come out and show that Moog was really just under Michaela's spell and that Moog was a victim all along. Oviraptor is Moog. He wasn't accused of being a pedophile or anything, but Oviraptor was accused of stealing eggs. Oviraptor means egg thief, and it is all because of this Oviraptor fossil. For many years, scientists thought that he went around stealing eggs, hence the name egg thief. The Oviraptor was ostracized, looked down upon, for the sole reason that he went around stealing other dinosaurs' eggs. And this went on for a long time, until recent studies came out. Recent studies which showed that the eggs the Oviraptor were taking belonged to an Oviraptor. She wasn't stealing eggs, she died trying her best to protect her young. In a perfect world, she would have been nicknamed the Caring Mother Lizard instead of the Maiasaura. A tier. Pachy is a fan favourite. He had his iconic dome that could be up to 25 cm made of solid bones. He had short arms, long legs, and was a herbivore who had a bowling ball for a head. Scientists think that they use their heads for headbutting contests, like how a ram or sheep would do. His skull had blood vessels in it, so some people think that it could use to change colour to intimidate rivals back then. Recent studies on the microstructure of the bone supports the idea that it could absorb impacts as well. But only die-hard dino fans know that the real reason the Pachys had their domes was to hold the Pachy embryo inside of it and shoot it out once danger appears. If danger appears, the Pachy will shoot at the embryo which flies through their target, coming out of it the other side. Also, I love the Pokemon iteration of it. A tier. Most ceratopians are famous for their long sharp horns. Pachyrhinosaurus was not famous for that. It was famous because of the lumpy mess of a bone on its nose. Their juveniles actually started with small horn-like structures that later fused into bone balls as they matured. So basically, a young Pachy might have looked like a Triceratops, but then as he grew older it gained its own identity. While other ceratopians went for the stabbing route, the Pachyrhinosaurus went for the battle ram route. C tier. I've never met anybody who didn't like the Parasaurolophus. For many, this is one of the first dinosaurs we ever learned about. Around 30 feet long and weighing over 2.5 tons, it was a big hadrosaur. Its most iconic feature was its crest on top of its head, which were hollow chambers that it could blow air through, making deep echoing calls, a possible way of communicating with the herd. People underestimate the Parasaurolophus sometimes. It was bigger than elephants, fast, lived in herds, and had many ways of defending itself, from a grapevine to dangerous kicks. It could really hold its own with a predator if needed to. One of my childhood favourites, I'm putting him at the top of B tier. This is a wyvern. To get this creature tamed in Ark, you have to go to the actual depths of hell, steal a wyvern egg, and then somehow run away and escape without dying. I was able to do it, and I raised him like my son. His name was Roof Jr., and we went on many adventures together. I loved him dearly, and it felt like we were immortal, like we were on top of this world, like a Pagomastix killed him. Roof Jr. was in passive mode, and a Pagomastix killed him. I don't care if his real life counterpart is a saint, I don't care if his real life counterpart donates to charities on weekends, I'm putting Pagomastix in D tier. Pentaceratops was basically a Triceratops with more ceratops. It had 5 horns instead of the usual 3, but 2 of its horns weren't weapons. It was 20 feet long and weighed more than 5 tons and had a really massive head. He looked like a bobblehead. My favourite depictions of him are when people draw his frill with eyes and unique colours like a peacock. It could have been plausible because his frill wasn't useful in combat and was most likely used for attracting mates and intimidation. Also, a Pentaceratops having peacock traits wouldn't be too far off since dinosaurs were related to birds and everything. An underrated Ceratops, always being overshadowed by the other Ceratops, who's called Triceratops. The Pentaceratops goes into B tier. With over 400 individual fossils found, Psittacosaurus holds the title for the most specimens of any non-avian dinosaur. He was pretty small, only like 4 to 6 feet long. It was short and had a curved beak, just like a parrot, hence the name parrot lizard. It was the first dinosaur ever to be reconstructed with scientifically accurate colour, and one fossil was so well preserved that it still had melanosomes in its skin, pigment cells. From this, scientists actually figured out that he had counter shading, dark on the back and light on the belly, the same camouflage trick used by deers and sharks. Also unique to it were the stiff quill-like structures that lined his tail. We have no idea what it was used for, but my theory was that he used it to tickle any predators that tried to mess with it. C tier. Pyroraptor was like any other raptor, razor-sharp single claws, a lightweight, and super smart hunting tactics. When he was first discovered, it was in a region shaped by wildfires, so some even speculated that it could have been opportunities, scavenging after the fires, or even using the smoke to his advantage. I love how it looks with the feathers on top of his head, B tier. Trentosaurus was a member of the Tyrannosaur family. I recently beat Lies of P, so I really like his nickname, the Pinocchio-rex, and he was called that because of his narrow elongated snout like a crocodile. Its snout had lots and lots of small sharp teeth inside of it, just perfect for capturing any smaller prey. There's only one known Trentosaurus specimen, and it might not even have been a full adult. It was around 30 feet tall, but scientists believe that it could have been bigger. Before his discovery, most people thought that all Tyrannosaurs had massive heads and big jaws. Trentosaurus helped show that not all Tyrannosaurs were built the same. I hope we find out more about this guy in the future. C tier. Rajasaurus was known as the king lizard. He had short limbs and a thick skull, and the most eye-catching one, a bony crown right in the middle of his forehead. His fossils were found in Narmada Valley, and for years, paleontologists only had fragments, until they pieced it together to realize that this was a unique predator from a completely isolated ecosystem. Rajasaurus was from India, which during that time was a drifting island, so Rajasaurus was likely a top predator of his little kingdom. Kinda reminds me of Nameless King from Dark Souls 3, you know, like a foreign king from a distant land. I like the crown on top of his head, I'm giving him a B tier. Scanzoraptorex looks like a freaking dragon. B tier. Shantangosaurus could reach up to 50 feet and weighed over 15 tons. It was the largest known non-sauropod dinosaur ever. It was the outlier in his duckbill like Hadrosaur family. The rest of them never ever got this big. Just look at the size of one of these things. God damn. Just a stampede alone could level a whole forest. C tier. Sinosauropteryx was the first ever non-avian dinosaur we found with the evidence of feathers. It was so well preserved actually that we knew it had a branded tail. It was lightweight, 3 feet long, and looked like a mix between a chicken and a raccoon. His whole body was covered in proto-feathers, with his tail being ring bands of orange and white. All this made it the first ever dinosaur we figured out the colour pattern of. A dinosaur with many achievements, with one more coming right up, a B tier. A certified classic. If I asked somebody to name 5 dinosaurs, Stegosaurus would definitely be mentioned by everybody. He had 17 massive bony plates that ran down his spine, and till to this day, we have no idea what it does. But scientists have theorized that it was primarily used for display and secondarily used for heat regulation. My favourite part of the stego, by far, is his tagomizer. The tagomizer was his tail which had 4 long spikes at the end of it. This is the closest thing we will ever get to a dinosaur with a sword for his tail. And also, in case you forgot, I'm sorry for bringing up Allosaurus, but it did stab Allosaurus in the balls with it. And I thought the theropods were the most brutal. God damn. Don't have anything bad to say about the stego, he's going to A tier. My favourite dinosaur of all time, the Spinosaurus. I remember the first time I saw him in Jurassic Park 3, it blew my tiny little mind when he beat the T-Rex ass. Spinosaurus was the longest carnivorous dinosaur ever, measuring up to 59 feet long, even longer than the T-Rex. A lot of people think of Jurassic World 3 design when they think of Spinosaurus, but what a lot of people don't know is that how we think of the Spinosaurus and how we perceive it has been constantly changing throughout the decades. When it was first discovered in 1912, it was described as a weird version of a T-Rex with a sail, a massive land-walking predator with everybody thinking he walked on 2 legs. Later, during 2014, a game-changing paper dropped showing that Spinosaurus has super short back legs and really dense bones, leading to the idea that Spinosaurus was semi-aquatic. 2020, a spinal fossil revealed that he had a giant paddle-like tail like a crocodile or newt, which strongly supports the aquatic theory. But in 2024, newly research questioned if the Spino could actually swim efficiently at all because he had short, awkward legs, so he probably wasn't even a good swimmer. But now, even more research popped up saying he was a good swimmer, so who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? At this point, if Spinosaurus had wings and scooped down to eat fish just to fly away at light speed, I would probably believe that's true. Whether it swam, whether it didn't swim, it most likely spent its time near water, as evident by its crocodile-like skull, which was perfect for gripping fish. As for the sail on his back, like many things about the Spino, it remains a mystery. Either way, no matter how many times the Spino changes, he'll always be the most coolest looking and my favourite dinosaur of all time. S tier. Suchomimus was a Spinosaurus without a sail. C tier. Suchosaurus is one of the most unique looking dinosaurs ever, that is for sure. He looks like a vulture who was tired for waiting for his food to die, so he decided to take matters into his own hands and gain claws. These claws are over 1 foot long, and when you look at it, you would think it would be to rip their prey apart, right? But Suchosaurus was a herbivore. His claws weren't used for ripping prey apart, instead to pull down branches, strip leaves, using it mainly as a scythe. I don't think many people even know he exists, and I really love how he looks. I'm putting him in the B tier. The Suzosaurus had one more thing. He was a close cousin of Dinosaurs was the more popular cousin of the two. Like Suzosaurus, it was also a herbivore. He didn't use his claws to hunt its prey or attack, but rather grabbed these for eating. Fossils of the Dinosaurs were originally thought to be from a large turtle because his big claws were perceived as flippers. Also, due to their considerably robust lower bone structure, they most likely sat down for hours and just reached out to the trees above and the trees which are beside them to harvest plants, instead of walking around the forest they were in. Me and Terry's go way back. I had one in Ark named Dio, and I named him that because when I first met him, he killed all the dinosaurs I had with me. You can only imagine my surprise when I found out this piece of shit was a herbivore. A tier. Taurosaurus has been under the radar for a long time, mainly because he's always being overshadowed by the other meat-eating dinosaur of its time, the Allosaurus. It was theorized that Taurosaurus was a scavenger, and that he wasn't mainly an active predator. He was one of the largest carnivores of the Jurassic period. He wasn't the flashiest, but he didn't need to be. It was all about raw power and giant jaws. C tier. Triceratops lived right at the end of the Cretaceous period. It was one of the last known avian dinosaurs alive before the extinction event. He had two horns above the eyes, perfect for jousting other trikes and fending off predators. Even though my boy over here was a peaceful herbivore, he had the kind of weaponry that would make any apex predator think twice before approaching it. Some T-Rex skulls even have puncture wounds that match a tricorn. So yeah, this peaceful plant muncher didn't mess around. He's one of the only known dinosaurs that could actually stand on its own and bang for T-Rex. That's badass. I'm putting him in the B tier. I'm putting Troodon in the F tier where he belongs. If you ever played Ark, you know why. If you ever played Ark, you know why. Everybody's favorite dinosaur, the T-mother-freaking Rex. Rexy holds the crown for the most powerful bite force of any land animal known ever. For comparison, a lion can bite up to 650 psi. A Rex can bite up to 20 times stronger than that, coming in at around 12,800 psi. Rexy was 20 feet tall and weighed about 10 tons. The T-Rex didn't just bite bones, he destroyed them. In 1997 Russia, a poacher shot a tiger and then stole its kill. That said tiger, wounded, followed the poacher home, waited 12 hours for him to come out, and then killed him. This is a real life story, and there's even a book about it. The T-Rex was built for walking long distances, so hypothetically, if you pissed one off way too much, like the tiger, it could follow you and hunt you for a really long time. The Tyrant Lizard King also had massive olfactory bulbs, meaning it could smell a carcass from miles away. And even though we all rose its arms, right, each one was the size of a human adult and could curl around 400 plus pounds. It really was the ultimate killing machine. And he even had vision that could see up to 6 kilometers away. There has been so many iterations of the Rex over the years throughout media. Let me know what's your favorite in the comment section below, I'm very curious. But if you're talking about top 3, I would have to say Rexy from Jurassic, the Rex from King Kong, and Rex from Toy Story. Popular does not mean overrated, and I'll say it one more time for the people in the back. Being popular does not mean it's overrated. Rexy isn't called the king for nothing. For many of us, it was the reason why we became so fascinated with dinosaurs in the first place. I love the T-Rex, and if I came across one, I'm sure he would feel the same way about me. Only in his case, it would be the love of food. I'm putting Rexy in the S tier. The Eutranos was the largest dinosaur with the most evidence of feathering. Their feathers were long, filamentous ones, likely used for insulation to keep it warm during the cold weather. It was 30 feet long, fully equipped with fuzz, and was part of the Tyrannosaurus family. Unlike Rexy though, the Eutranos had 3 fingers on each hand instead of 2. Recent studies have shown that it was most likely used to flip off other dinosaurs. It was an important discovery showing that theropods could be fluffy. Eutranos is going to B tier. It really is the little things in life that matter. When I picked up dinosaur books as a kid, I let my imagination run wild. I was creative, I was curious, I wanted to know more. In this day and age where we learn about anything and everything at the same time, or within a 10-second TikTok, it gets kinda boring sometimes. It feels empty. It feels like the magic is not there. The magic was there when we were arguing about furry dinosaurs. The magic was there when we discussed if a Spino could actually be a T-Rex in a real fight. I feel like most of us had dinosaur face as a kid, but as we grow older, we just grew out of it. Well, guess what? It's time we brought it back. I can already smell the comments. Sorry, you forgot about the Diplodocus. He was a hadrosaur with no limbs. He had to slither around like a snake. Good. That is a start. Let me know all your favorite dinosaurs which I didn't mention in the comment section below. And for the last time, let me know if a Spino could actually beat a T-Rex in a real fight. Let's get something going. Let's argue. Let's talk about dinosaurs. If you're wondering why I didn't have Pteranodons and other flying people, it's because surprisingly enough, they are not dinosaurs, they're just close relatives. But that's about it. I had some complaints in my previous video that my outro was way too short, and I want you to know I'm hearing your feedback loud and clear. So for this video I was going to